The text message arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, just as I was finishing my third beer and pretending to watch some mindless cop show on Netflix. The blue glow of my phone cut through the darkness of our living room like a knife through butter. Package delivered. Check your email. Mac. My stomach dropped 6 floors, but somehow my hand stayed steady as I reached for my laptop. 3 weeks of waiting. 3 weeks of Jenny telling me about her girls' weekends and work conferences, and now I was about to see what $1,100 to a private investigator could buy me. The photos loaded slowly, each pixel a tiny dagger. There was my wife of 8 years, Jenny Patterson, formerly Jenny Walsh, wrapped around some guy like Christmas lights on a tree. The timestamp showed last Saturday afternoon, the same Saturday she'd supposedly been at a spa retreat with her sister Lisa. Jesus Christ, I muttered, scrolling through image after image. Jenny kissing this stranger in the parking lot of the Sunset Motel. Jenny holding hands with him as they walked into room 237. Jenny laughing at something he said, her head thrown back in that carefree way she used to laugh with me, back when we were happy. The guy was everything I wasn't. Tall where I was average height, muscled where I was getting soft around the middle, wearing clothes that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. His perfectly styled hair caught the afternoon sunlight like he was posing for a magazine cover. I recognized him from Jenny's work photos. Rick Donovan, some hotshot account executive at Morrison & Associates, where Jenny worked as a marketing coordinator. She'd mentioned him before, always with that little smile that should have been my first clue. Rick's so funny, she'd say. Rick has the best ideas. Rick thinks I should apply for that promotion. Rick thinks my wife should cheat on her husband, apparently. I sat there in the dark for maybe an hour, just staring at those photos, feeling something cold and sharp crystallizing in my chest. Not heartbreak. That would come later. This was pure calculating rage. My phone buzzed again. A text from Jenny. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. The words tasted like ashes in my mouth as I read them. I closed the laptop and walked to the kitchen, grabbing another beer from the fridge. The house felt different now, like the walls themselves knew about the betrayal. Every photo of us together, every shared memory, every I love you from the past few months. All of it was contaminated. But here's the thing about being a mechanic for 20 years. You learn to fix things that are broken. And when something's too far gone to repair, you learn to strip it for parts and start over. I spent the rest of the night in my garage, working on the '87 Camaro I'd been restoring, letting the familiar rhythm of wrench turning calm my racing thoughts. By dawn, I had a plan. Jenny came home around 7 in the morning, her hair still damp from what I assumed was a shower at Rick's place. She moved quietly through the house, probably thinking I was still asleep. I watched her from the kitchen window as she sat in her car for a few minutes, checking her phone, fixing her makeup. When she finally came inside, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and the printed photos spread out like a poker hand. "Good morning, honey," I said, my voice steady as concrete. "How was work?" She froze in the doorway, her purse slipping from her shoulder. Her eyes went from my face to the photos and back again, and I watched the color drain from her cheeks like water from a broken sink. "Tom, I can explain." "Can you?" Because these photos tell a pretty clear story. Saturday afternoon at the Sunset Motel with Rick from your office. The same Saturday you were supposedly getting a couples massage with your sister. She moved closer, her hands shaking as she reached for one of the photos. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" "Because it looks like my wife of 8 years is screwing around with some pretty boy from work. It looks like every late night and weekend conference for the past 6 months has been a lie. It looks like I've been played for a fool." Jenny sank into the chair across from me, tears starting to roll down her cheeks. But I wasn't buying the waterworks. Not anymore. "How long?" I asked. "Tom, please, how long?" She wiped her nose with the back of her hand, a gesture that used to seem endearing. Now it just looked pathetic. 4 months, she whispered. 4 months. 4 months of lies. 4 months of coming home to kiss me with the same mouth she'd been using on Rick Donovan. 4 months of me working overtime to pay for the new clothes and spa treatments that were really for her boyfriend. Why? The question came out rougher than I intended. She looked up at me then, and for a moment I saw a flash of the old Jenny, the woman I'd fallen in love with at a college party 15 years ago. But then her expression hardened. "Because you're not enough anymore, Tom." You come home covered in grease, you drink beer and watch TV. You never want to go anywhere or do anything. Rick makes me feel alive again. He makes me feel like I matter. The words hit like a punch to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. So instead of talking to me about it, you decided to sneak around behind my back. I tried to talk to you. I've been trying for years, but you just grunt and change the channel. Maybe she had a point. Maybe I had gotten comfortable, complacent. But that didn't justify what she'd done. So what now? I asked. She straightened up, wiping away the last of her tears. I want a divorce. There it was. The words I'd been expecting but somehow still weren't ready to hear. Fine, I said, but we're going to do this my way. Something in my tone made her look at me sharply. What do you mean? I gathered up the photos and stood up. I mean, you don't get to destroy our marriage and then walk away clean. You want Rick Donovan? You can have him. But first, you're going to pay for what you've done. Tom, you're scaring me. I smiled then, and it wasn't a nice smile. Good. You should be scared, because the man you married, the pushover who worked overtime to buy you nice things and never questioned where you were going, that man just died, and you're not going to like who's replacing him. I walked toward the garage, leaving her sitting at the kitchen table with her mouth hanging open. I had work to do. The next few weeks passed in a blur of cold politeness and careful planning. Jenny moved into the guest bedroom, which was fine by me. I didn't want to share a bed with her anyway, not knowing where she'd been. She tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy, cooking dinner and making small talk about her day, but I could see the fear in her eyes every time she looked at me. She was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I was happy to keep her waiting. I used the time to do my homework. Mac, the private investigator, was worth every penny. He'd been following Jenny and Rick for weeks, documenting their routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday after work, they'd meet at Rick's condo downtown. Saturday afternoons at the motel. Sunday morning, jogs, that ended at a coffee shop where they'd sit and plan their next moves. But the real gold mine was Jenny's phone. She'd gotten careless, leaving it unlocked while she showered. A few minutes with a USB cable and some software I'd downloaded was all it took to clone everything. The text messages were bad enough. Months of "I love you" and "I can't wait to leave him," and detailed descriptions of what they wanted to do to each other. But the real prize was a group chat called Operation Freedom that included Jenny, Rick, and someone named Lisa Hartwell. Lisa Hartwell. Jenny's sister Lisa. I'd always wondered why Lisa had suddenly become so supportive of Jenny's girls' weekends and spa retreats. Turns out she wasn't just covering for her sister. She was actively helping plan the affair. The group chat was a roadmap of deception. Lisa providing alibis, Rick scouting locations, Jenny lying about working late. They'd even discussed the best way to ease Tom into the idea of divorce so Jenny could get half of everything without a fight. Reading those messages felt like swallowing broken glass, but it also gave me something precious: ammunition. The first shot I fired was subtle. I waited until the next family barbecue at my in-laws' house when Lisa was holding court with her usual stories about her successful real estate career. "Hey, Lisa," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Jenny told me you've been helping her with some personal projects lately. That's really nice of you." Lisa's smile faltered just a bit. "Oh, just sister stuff." "Right, sister stuff. Like covering for her when she's busy with Rick from work." The backyard went dead silent. Jenny's face went white as a sheet. Lisa started stammering something about not knowing what I was talking about. "It's okay," I said, taking a sip of my beer. "I know all about it. The motel visits, the condo meetups, the whole thing. I just think it's sweet how family sticks together, you know?" Jenny's mother dropped her plate of potato salad. Her father, a man who'd never liked me much but respected the fact that I worked hard and treated his daughter well, looked like he wanted to crawl into a hole. "Tom," Jenny said, her voice barely above a whisper, "can we talk privately?" "Why?" "It's not a secret anymore. Your sister's been helping you cheat on me for months. I figured everyone should know what a supportive family you have." The barbecue ended early. Jenny and I drove home in complete silence, but I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. She was realizing that I wasn't going to be the quiet, accommodating husband she'd expected. That night, she tried a different approach. "Tom, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, but this doesn't have to be ugly. We can work out the divorce like adults. I was in the garage, as usual, working on the Camaro's engine. Can we? Because it seems to me like you and your sister and your boyfriend already worked everything out. I'm just the guy who gets to pay for it. That's not fair. I looked up from the carburetor I was rebuilding. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you talking to me before you started screwing around. Fair would have been you asking for a divorce before you made me look like an idiot in front of everyone we know. Fair would have been you not planning to take half my stuff to fund your new life with pretty boy Rick. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking small and vulnerable. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I never meant for it to happen this way. But it did happen this way. And now you get to live with the consequences. What do you want from me, Tom? I set down my tools and really looked at her. 8 years of marriage, and I was seeing her clearly for the first time. The selfishness that I'd mistaken for ambition. The manipulation that I'd thought was charm. The coldness that I'd convinced myself was just stress from work. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to know that you can't just destroy someone's life and walk away clean. And I want you to remember that you chose this. She turned and walked back to the house without another word. But I wasn't done with her yet. Not by a long shot. The next phase of my plan involved Rick directly. I'd been watching him, learning his routine. Every morning at 6 a.m., he went to CrossFit Unlimited downtown. Every evening, after work, he stopped at the same trendy bar for overpriced cocktails. Weekends, he played volleyball at the beach with his equally pretty friends. Rick Donovan lived the kind of life that looked great on Instagram, but was actually pretty shallow when you scratched the surface. Expensive car, expensive clothes, expensive apartment, but no real substance underneath. He was the kind of guy who thought having money made him better than everyone else. I decided it was time to introduce myself properly. I found Rick at Murphy's Bar on a Thursday evening, sitting at the bar with his phone out, probably texting my wife. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a week, his hair perfectly styled, his smile practiced and empty. I ordered a beer and took the stool next to him. "Rick Donovan, right?" I said, extending my hand. "I'm Tom Patterson, Jenny's husband." The color drained from his face so fast, I thought he might pass out. But to his credit, he recovered quickly, putting on that same practice smile. "Tom! Hey, man, Ginny's told me so much about you." "I bet she has. All good things, I hope." He laughed nervously. Of course. You're a lucky guy having a wife like Jenny." "Lucky. Yeah, that's one way to put it." I took a long pull from my beer. "Tell me, Rick, what do you think makes a marriage work?" I wouldn't really know. Never been married myself." "No? That's surprising. Good-looking guy like you, successful career, nice car. You'd think some woman would have snatched you up by now." He was sweating now, despite the air conditioning. "Just haven't found the right person yet, I guess." Or maybe you have, and she just happens to be married to someone else." The pretense dropped away like a mask. Rick straightened up, and for a moment I saw the arrogance that had attracted my wife. "Look, Tom, I don't know what you think you know. I know you've been sleeping with my wife for 4 months. I know about the motel visits and the condo dates and the little group chat where you all plan your lies. I know about every text message, every photo, every promise you've made to each other." Rick glanced around the bar, probably looking for an escape route, but I wasn't done with him yet. "Here's what I don't know," I continued. "I don't know what you thought would happen when I found out. Did you think I'd just roll over and let you steal my wife? Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" "Jenny's not happy with you," Rick said, trying to regain some control of the conversation. "She hasn't been happy for years. I'm not stealing anything. I'm just giving her what she needs." "What she needs? You mean expensive dinners and hotel rooms and someone to tell her how special she is?" "I mean someone who appreciates her, someone who sees her potential instead of taking her for granted." The words stung because there was some truth in them, but I wasn't about to let this pretty boy lecture me about my own marriage. "You know what I think, Rick? I think you're a predator. I think you saw an unhappy married woman and decided she'd be an easy target. I think you fed her a bunch of lines about how she deserved better, how she was too good for her blue-collar husband, how you could give her the life she really wanted." Rick's jaw tightened. "That's not how it happened." "No? Then tell me how it happened. Tell me how a guy like you ends up with a married woman." "She came to me. She was lonely, neglected. You were too busy with your cars and your beer to notice that your wife was dying inside. The accusation hit home, but I kept my expression neutral. So you decided to be her knight in shining armor. I decided to be her friend. The rest just happened. Bullshit. You saw an opportunity and you took it. The question is, what are you going to do now that I know about it? Rick finished his drink and stood up. I'm going to take care of Jenny. She's filing for divorce next week, and then we can be together properly. Is that what she told you? That it would be that simple? It will be. She doesn't love you anymore, Tom. She loves me. I smiled then, the same cold smile I'd given Jenny in the kitchen. We'll see about that. Rick threw some money on the bar and headed for the door, but I wasn't finished with him yet. Hey, Rick, I called after him. You might want to check your car before you drive home. He spun around, his face flushed with anger. What did you do? Nothing. Yet. But you should probably know that I'm not the kind of guy who goes down without a fight, and I'm really good at finding weak spots. He stormed out, leaving me alone with my beer and my thoughts. Phase 2 was complete. Now it was time for Phase 3. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Morrison & Associates. I'd never been to Jenny's office before, but I'd heard enough about it to find my way around. Glass and steel and expensive furniture, the kind of place that was designed to impress clients and intimidate employees. I asked the receptionist for Jenny, saying I was her husband and had brought her lunch. She directed me to the marketing department on the 3rd floor. I found Jenny at her desk, typing furiously on her computer. She looked up when she saw me, and I watched the fear flicker across her face. Tom? What are you doing here? Brought you lunch, I said, holding up a bag from her favorite sandwich shop. Thought we could eat together, maybe meet some of your coworkers. I'm really busy right now. Oh, come on. I'd love to meet the famous Rick Donovan. You talk about him so much at home. Several heads turned in our direction. I could see Jenny calculating the social cost of making a scene versus going along with my request. He's in a meeting, she said finally. That's okay, I can wait. I pulled up a chair next to her desk and started unpacking the sandwiches. Jenny's coworkers were pretending to work, but I could tell they were listening to every word. So this is where the magic happens, I said, looking around. Nice place. Very fancy. I bet it's exciting, working with all these successful people. Tom, please. I was just telling Rick last night how proud I am of you. Working so hard, staying so late, all those weekend conferences, really going above and beyond for the company. Jenny's face went white. You talked to Rick? Oh yeah, nice guy. We had a really interesting conversation about marriage and loyalty and what happens when people cross certain lines. I could see the panic building in her eyes. She was probably wondering what I'd said, what I knew, what I was planning to do next. I should get back to work, she said quietly. Of course. Don't let me keep you. I'll just sit here and finish my sandwich, maybe chat with your coworkers. I'm sure they'd love to hear about what a devoted wife you are. I stayed for another hour, making small talk with anyone who would listen, dropping casual comments about Jenny's busy schedule and close working relationships. By the time I left, half the office was buzzing with gossip. Jenny didn't come home until almost midnight. I was waiting for her in the living room, reading a book about divorce law I had picked up at the library. You son of a bitch, she said, as soon as she walked through the door. Now, is that any way to talk to your loving husband? You humiliated me today? Everyone at work is talking. Talking about what? I just brought you lunch and said nice things about your work ethic. She threw her purse down and glared at me. You know exactly what you did. I know exactly what you did too. The question is, what are we going to do about it? I already told you, I want a divorce. I closed the book and looked at her. And I told you we're going to do this my way. See, the thing is, Jenny, you made a mistake. You thought I was weak. You thought I'd just roll over and let you take whatever you wanted, but you were wrong. What do you want from me? I want you to understand that every action has a consequence. You want to destroy our marriage? Fine, but you're going to pay for it. Both of you. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out how far I was willing to go. You're not the man I married, she said finally. No, I agreed. I'm not. The man you married was a fool, but he's gone now, and you're stuck with me. She turned and walked toward the guest bedroom, her shoulders shaking. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The charity gala was perfect. The annual Morrison & Associates fundraiser for the Children's Hospital held at the Grand Ballroom downtown. 500 of the city's most prominent business people, all dressed up and ready to see and be seen. Jenny had mentioned it weeks ago, back when she was still pretending our marriage wasn't over. She'd bought a new dress, made appointments for hair and makeup, talked about how important it was for her career to make a good impression. I'd smiled and nodded and told her she'd look beautiful. And she would, right up until the moment I destroyed her life in front of everyone who mattered to her. The plan had taken weeks to put together. Mac, the private investigator, had been worth every penny. Not just for the original photos, but for everything that came after. Bank records showing Rick's expensive gifts to Jenny, hotel receipts, credit card statements, text messages, photos, videos. But the real masterpiece was the presentation I'd put together. 43 slides of pure, devastating truth, set to music and timed perfectly for maximum impact. I arrived at the gala early, dressed in the one good suit I owned. The hotel's AV technician was a guy named Danny, whose car I'd fixed a few months back. He owed me a favor, and tonight I was calling it in. "You sure about this, Tom?" Danny asked as we loaded my USB drive into the presentation system. "This is going to be nuclear." "I'm sure. And you're okay with the fallout?" I thought about the past 4 months, the lies, the humiliation, the group chat where they'd laughed about how stupid I was, the plans to take half of everything I'd worked for to fund Jenny's new life with her boyfriend. "I'm okay with it." Danny shook his head but finished the setup. "It's your funeral, man." "No," I said. "It's theirs." The ballroom filled up over the next hour. I watched from the back as Jenny arrived with Rick, both of them looking like they'd stepped out of a magazine. She was wearing a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Her hair and makeup, perfect. Rick was in a tuxedo that fit him like it had been made for him, which it probably had been. They worked the room like a team. Jenny introducing Rick to her colleagues, Rick charming everyone with his practiced smile and easy conversation. They looked happy together, comfortable, like a real couple. Which, I suppose, they were. I waited until the dinner was over and the speeches began. Morrison himself was at the podium, talking about the company's commitment to the community when I gave Danny the signal. The lights dimmed as Morrison introduced the evening's multimedia presentation about the Children's Hospital. The screen behind him flickered to life, and for a moment, everything was normal. Then my presentation began. The first slide was simple. The real Morrison & Associates, in elegant script across a black background. Nothing alarming about that. The second slide showed a photo of Jenny and Rick at the motel, kissing passionately in the parking lot. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken during work hours on a Tuesday afternoon. The gasps started immediately. I could see Jenny at her table near the front, her face frozen in horror. Rick was trying to get up, probably to stop the presentation, but the lights were too dim for him to see where he was going. Slide 3. Text messages between Jenny and Rick, talking about how stupid her husband was and how easy it would be to take him for everything in the divorce. Slide 4. Bank records showing Rick using his company credit card to pay for hotel rooms and expensive dinners. Slide 5. Photos of them at his condo, taken through the window with a telephoto lens. The presentation went on for 10 minutes that felt like hours. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment of their affair laid out in high definition for 500 of the city's most prominent citizens to see. The audio was the worst part. I had managed to record several of their phone conversations, including one where Jenny talked about how she couldn't wait to divorce that loser mechanic and start her real life with Rick. By the time the presentation ended, the ballroom was in chaos. People were talking, pointing, taking pictures with their phones. Jenny was crying, her makeup running down her face. Rick was red-faced and furious, pushing through the crowd toward the AV booth, but I was already gone. I waited for them in the parking lot, leaning against Rick's precious Mustang. He'd had it repainted since I'd keyed it weeks ago, but I could still see where the scratches had been. They came out together, Jenny sobbing, and Rick trying to comfort her, while simultaneously looking around for me. When they saw me by the car, Rick's face twisted with rage. "You son of a bitch," he screamed, charging toward me. "You destroyed us." I didn't move. "You destroyed yourselves." I just made sure everyone knew about it. Rick swung at me, but I'd been expecting it. I ducked under his punch and grabbed him by the lapels of his expensive tuxedo, slamming him back against his car. Here's the thing, Rick, I said quietly. You thought you were so much better than me. You thought you could take my wife and my life, and I'd just roll over and take it. But you were wrong. Let go of me! In a minute. First, I want you to understand something. That presentation, that was just the beginning. I've sent copies to your boss, your clients, your family, and every social media contact you have. By tomorrow morning, everyone you know will have seen what kind of man you really are. I could see the fear in his eyes now, the same fear I'd been living with for months. You're insane, Jenny said, her voice shaking. This is insane. I looked at her, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, and felt nothing but contempt. Insane? You want to know what's insane? Insane is working 60-hour weeks to pay for your clothes and your spa treatments while you're screwing around behind my back. Insane is lying to your husband's face for 4 months while you plan to take half of everything he's worked for. Insane is thinking you could destroy someone's life without consequences. I let go of Rick and stepped back. You two deserve each other, but you don't deserve to get away clean. Rick was fumbling for his keys, desperate to get away, but I wasn't done with them yet. Oh, and Rick, you might want to find a new job. I sent that presentation to Morrison's board of directors, too. Something tells me they're not going to be happy about their employees using company resources to fund affairs. His face went white. You didn't. I did. And Jenny, you might want to call a lawyer, because after tonight, I'm not going to be the accommodating husband who just wants this to be over. I'm going to fight for every penny, every asset, every single thing we built together. And with all the evidence I have of your affair, I think I'm going to win. They drove away in silence, leaving me alone in the parking lot with the sound of sirens in the distance. Someone had probably called the police about the disturbance, but I wasn't worried. I hadn't broken any laws, I'd just told the truth. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of lawyers and paperwork and phone calls. Rick was fired from Morrison and Associates within days of the gala. Jenny was quietly transferred to a different department and given a significant pay cut. Their affair was over, killed by the harsh light of public exposure. Jenny moved out of the house and into a studio apartment across town. The divorce proceedings were brutal but quick. With all the evidence of her infidelity, she had no choice but to accept a settlement that left her with almost nothing. Rick tried to find another job, but the video of our confrontation had gone viral on social media. No one wanted to hire a man who'd been publicly exposed as a cheater and a liar. 6 months later, I heard they'd broken up. Apparently, their love wasn't strong enough to survive the consequences of their actions. I kept the house, the cars, the savings account, and most importantly, my self-respect. The Camaro restoration was finally finished, and I spent my evenings working on other projects in the garage, rebuilding engines and rebuilding my life. Jenny had been right about one thing. I wasn't the same man she'd married. That man had been trusting, accommodating, willing to overlook problems for the sake of peace. The new me was harder, smarter, and a lot less forgiving. The new me understood that sometimes the only way to win is to make sure your enemies lose everything. And as I sat in my garage on a quiet Saturday evening, listening to the Camaro's engine purr like a contented cat, I realized I was okay with that. Some people might call what I did cruel or excessive, but I called it justice. Jenny and Rick had made their choices, and now they were living with the consequences. As for me, I was finally free, 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 was finally free.